Agree with that.
All right. Let's talk the movie.
I guess.
In a world of movie references flying over his head, one man will finally watch them. This is the Matt and Blonde Show movie review.
This week's movie is the 1997 sci-fi thriller The Fifth Element, in which an ex-military taxicab driver assumes responsibility for the entire world when an eccentric woman who completes an ancient superweapon literally falls into his air car. From Movie Picker Charles, an enjoyable sci-fi movie with themes of good versus evil, enough campy cartoon-like ridiculousness, and hilariously over-the-top characters and costumes to keep it light. As always, your review and your rating.
I did not know this was the director from Leon the Professional, but now it's illuminated some of the reasons that I didn't like it very much. I didn't hate it though. I didn't hate this, but it was interesting. I'll give it that. And a few things that I liked. All right, this future hellscape is multicultural, and then there's some really prophetic bits about like the gender bending stuff and the mindlessness of social media, future social media, and live streaming. Because that, what is his name? The clearly homosexual guy that was in.
I have plenty to say about Chris Tucker in this movie.
Chris Tucker.
But I guess I didn't notice the live streaming angle. Maybe I missed it.
Because he had his earpiece in and he was like, he was basically live streaming his show, you know? Yeah. And so I thought that was prophetic because he was like such a worthless piece of shit character. And then the futility of the military. And I'm kind of a sucker for these plucky sci-fi movies, so there was some good stuff here, and I like Bruce Willis. But I have major problems with movies that are just too long, and this had such a terrible editing problem. There were so many fucking characters that I didn't care about, and the action sequences were too long, and it just muddled the good parts of the story. And by the end of it, I was just so exhausted from like what was going on that I was like, could have been a better tailored, better edited film that made me care more about it. So I gave it 2 out of 5, although there were some innovative and interesting elements and some accidental commentary on society that I found useful.
You're not going to praise this goddess woman as you did on Wednesday?
She's really hot. Like really like stupid hot. That's about it though.
I thought this might be the week where we were going to get off of this agreement streak that we're on.
I thought you were going to hate this. Did you?
Because I thought you would probably like it more than I did.
No.
But we are once again in pretty close agreement. If maybe for different reasons. I do agree that there are some redeeming qualities. It's not a horrific 1 rating for me. So I guess that represents an improvement for Luc Besson, who again is the director of Leon, and I'll get to that in a little bit because while I acknowledge I have kind of a bias against him, I also think that he has some problems in the way that he makes movies that I don't like.
How many kids did he rape on set? That's the real question.
Well, this movie does play into that storyline a little bit, actually. There is some really interesting philosophy sprinkled in here and there. The coolest scene, or the most interesting scene to me, was when the priest and the villain Zorg are having this dialogue. And Zorg breaks the glass and says, by destroying things, something to the effect of, the quote is, by creating a little destruction, I'm in fact encouraging life. Saying, by destroying this glass, for example, look at all the pieces of technology and all the jobs that had to be created.
Jobs, yeah.
It's interesting to think about, but it's the broken window fallacy of economics. It does create jobs in that that mess had to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
But that means what? We're just constantly reinventing the broken wheel. We're not advancing. We're not innovating. It's true there's a job created, but there's advancement that is sacrificed according to that view. And I just thought it was interesting commentary too, how, again, it's an example of how we can convince ourselves that immoral means achieve moral ends. And we constantly discuss that on this show. I think maybe it's possible in isolated circumstances, but as a general rule, you don't achieve moral ends through immoral means. And that's really what he was talking about. We can kind of rationalize our way into that. I thought that was interesting. There's commentary as Leeloo is kind of losing her will to live. She says, what's the use of saving life when you see what you do with it. She had seen all of humanity's wars and all of the awful things we've done. And she's saying, well, what's the point of saving this? And they have this conversation about how love is worth saving. But really, to me, it was commentary on how you got to accept the inherent value of life as a fundamental premise. And I know that's challenging at times, but if you don't, we have no moral framework. We have no purpose in life. There's no reason to do anything if human life isn't treated with inherent value. And it was interesting commentary on that. But I share your criticism that there were the things that were interesting. If there was more of that, I would have enjoyed the movie much more. For every piece of that, there was a screeching Chris Tucker to come in and just ruin it. More on him in a minute. The future, I actually thought the action scene of the future car city was pretty cool.
Sweet, yeah.
And I think it was either influential on George Lucas for Star Wars and Coruscant, because that's what I thought of immediately. That chase scene in Attack of the Clones was very similar. It's possible that George Lucas took some influence from this, because this came out a couple of years before Coruscant was fully presented in Star Wars in The Phantom Menace.
Really?
Yeah. But on the other side, there are a lot of arguments that Luc Besson ripped off a lot of George Lucas ideas too, and I've linked that in the review. Yeah. And there's some compelling reason to believe that as well. Now, things I hated. For as cool as the action can be at times, action narrated by a frantic gay Chris Tucker is the worst action possible. And I agree with you that his character was largely useless. He is basically the Jar Jar Binks of this movie. Yeah. And maybe that's another way that George Lucas ripped off Luc Besson or this movie, that he is obnoxious. He's pointless. You could delete him outright. And not only does it not impact the plot, really, I know that he was kind of the premise to get Dallas to the theater, and there was the whole radio thing. But you could get him there through a different premise. You could delete him outright and not just have a meaningful negative impact. You could improve the movie. Like, to me, it's a full wiki ratings improvement just by deleting that guy.
Deleting him.
He was so annoying. And indeed, Chris Tucker was actually nominated for a Razzie for Worst New Star for that performance, and he only lost to Dennis Rodman. So that tells you how bad it was. And then this is what I mentioned about maybe my perspective is kind of poisoned by Leon the Professional. If you guys don't remember, you didn't catch our review of that, it was Natalie Portman who was portraying a 13-year-old girl who was trying to seek revenge through the help of this professional hitman. And she was very sexualized in that movie. And I consider it to be pedo bait. I don't know what other way to... And we were harshly critical of the director, Luc Besson, for those reasons. Now, it's not strictly relevant to the plot of this movie, but I will note that he met his wife who was 15. This wife of his had said that Leon the Professional was inspired by their relationship. They met at 15. She was pregnant at 16. He was 31. She's the blue alien opera singer in this movie.
Oh, really?
That's her. And then Luke left her for the star of the movie, Mila Jovovich, who is
Seriously?
Lilu, and then left her after that too. Now, I don't want to harp on that too much because the movie is a separate product from the personal lives. But my problem in this case is that I can't see Lilu as anything but an adult adaptation of Matilda. They have the same haircut. They have the same kind of sexualization. They have the same struggle with trying to find purpose or meaning. Maybe that's an unfair criticism because I'm only taking it from a movie that I already hate. I'm acknowledging that. But I just can't see her as anything but like, here's adult Matilda. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he lacks innovation. That's the problem.
And then I just, it's one of those movies that tries to do everything. It tries to be hilarious. It tries to be deep. It tries to have awesome action, but it just doesn't do any of them really well. You don't feel like you walk away with some deep philosophical lesson. Yeah. You don't feel like there was some joke that really stuck in your mind. And the action scenes are okay, but you're gonna fire up the movie again to watch like the car chase or something. So for me, it is a 2 wiki rating as well. Okay. And I feel like I'm stretching, but I'm giving Luc Besson credit for at least using a woman of age this time. So credit where due.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
And did you know that Gary Oldman himself also hates this movie?
Oh, I believe it, because he overacted terribly and his accent was stupid.
He said it's unbearable. So it's not just me. But let's see what the audience thinks as far as I sense this might be a polarizing movie. We are definitely in the early vote. We are in the minority by quite a lot. Over 60% of the early vote gives it a 4 or a 5 wiki rating. Not
Our
a lot of
audience
hate.
must hate us after all of this.
This is one of those I guess I just don't get, but because there's a lot more love for this one than we have. Next week is War Games, and I know nothing about War Games other than it's a 1980s movie, but it looks like it has that same chick from Short Circuit. The ultimate front master from Short Circuit is in this one too.
Hebe, is that her last name?
I don't think it was that.
See what I did there?
I think that was incorrect.
It's Ali Sheedy.
Let's see. And after that, the nominations. Let's see what the Let's see what.
God,
the vote
she's
is.
ugly. I hate her face.
Nominations for next week are Black Hawk Down, Pulp Fiction, The Bourne Identity, Top Gun, Clerks, Transporter, Desperado, or of course you can reject the list and vote for a randomly selected top-rated movie instead. Currently, Black Hawk Down and Pulp Fiction leading the early vote. So get in there and vote if you have support for those movies or for movies otherwise. And as a reminder, if you'd like to read my movie reviews, comment how wrong I am, submit your own rating, vote for the next movie, and sign up for the chance to be the movie nominator for the month. The one and only place to do that is my weekly movie review column linked in the description and on the homepage of the website. That is mattchristiansenmedia.com.